much differently than I was expecting it to. I think I really thought that we would be relocating and like moving out west. And that was the plan. It was just a very loose plan with not a lot of planning. We'd like to be somewhere where we're more established, and we didn't have the energy to make that place be that for us. So we came back to Nashville. I'm actually really thrilled to be here because we were able to get a house, and so now we have like double the amount of space that we would have if we were in an apartment, which is really great. I wanted to make something again. I wanted to make a video again to just sort of jumpstart me back into making them. I thought I would be in a space where I could continue to make them like early on in the new year. And what ended up happening was I got a job while we were still in California and like saved up some money so we could come back to Nashville. And then it was like staying with a friend, not having like our own space yet again. And yeah, there were just other like pressing things I think that took front seat, which were like working to save some money and like working towards the greater goal of like getting a space. So now that we have a space, yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And looking back at old journal entries from earlier this year and also like from last year, they're just me talking about not being prepared for the amount of travel that we ended up doing, and only like really being mentally and physically prepped for like 2-3 maybe months of being in transit that turned into like almost 7 months. All of it's self-inflicted, of course. No one forced us to do this. No one forced me to pack up my stuff into a storage unit and be on the road and traveling and living in other people's spaces for 6 months. But all that to say, I wasn't planning it to be that long. So yeah, you know, life happens. You just redirect, and I feel like I'm out in like a boat, like a dinghy boat, like on the ocean. And sometimes it's like I'm in full control of the paddles and I'm, you know, creating my life. And other times it feels like the waves are just like pushing you where they want you to go. And sometimes there's kind of a balance where there's like the ebb and flow of life that you're like working in tandem with. And I kind of feel like that's where I am now, like in control of some things and like of my schedule and just having a space and having the freedom to create in it and all of that. But also just like still some aspects of life that aren't quite what I want them to be yet. And yeah, doing what I can to work towards them. So in this phase of my life, it's been really important to me to talk about my failures because I kind of just constantly feel like I'm in one big failure, which I know is not true, but it's really easy to think that way, especially like as an artist that is like, I don't feel like I've taken off. I don't feel like I have an art career. I am just a hobbyist or maybe a freelancer, also like an aspiring YouTube person. But this trip that we took where we drove out west and like stayed there for months and tried to make it work to move, and then ultimately coming back to the place that we left, to Nashville, has been really humbling. And part of me has wished throughout the whole process that I could undo the decision and like go back to last summer before we left in Nashville and like just stay or just take a trip instead of like moving. But I have learned so much in the last year and during those 6 months of travel that I don't think I would take back. You know, I wouldn't take back the things I've learned, and I think it would be easier if I could go back and make a less abrasive move in my life. But I wouldn't know, you know, I needed to make the decision in order to know that it wasn't what I wanted to do, which is kind of frustrating. I think like I think making decisions and turning down avenues that end up just being closed doors feels like failure. But I think in the grand scheme of things, you are getting closer to the thing that you will end up doing and the door that will open and the thing that is going to be, great and work really well for you. So I kind of feel like this move back to Nashville wasn't really like super monumental, and life currently feels very similar to the way that it did before we left last year, but also it feels like a huge upgrade, like being in a house, having a whole extra room to be like an art room, like a studio space, office space. Yeah, I think it feels like a big upgrade to be where we are in a lot of ways. And even though there's still so much more to go in my head and so much, like I'm focusing on the lack still, I'm trying to focus on how grateful I am to be in a house, be in a space that is ours and a space that is like has so much room to grow. And yeah, I think I've spent like the last 8 or 9 months like being really kind of on edge about not having that. And every single conversation with friends or with my family or every journal entry was just like, I'm at my breaking point. I can't bear to be in someone else's space any longer. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of living out of a bag. That was kind of a rinse and repeat. That's all I was saying. And then, the storage unit that we had too was full of our stuff, and finally got to clear it out and move it into a house. So all of that is sort of like done and in the past, and I'm so grateful to be where we are, and I'm ready to like grow into this space, into this room, use it as an art studio, and hopefully make some really fulfilling and creative, fun things in here over the next while. Give me another wave.